So hello, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Saskia and I have just finished my degree at the University of Southampton. If you've watched any of my third year, second year, first year reviews, or just a lot of my videos dotted along the way, you might be aware of the slightly negative opinion I have of this university. And I have mentioned a lot of the issues throughout. However, I thought I would do everything wrong with the University of Southampton in one place, because as much as I've spoken about like issues with my lecturers in a video or issues with my dissertation supervisor in my dissertation diaries, I thought I'd put everything together because then you can figure it all out. So basically, some of these things will be psychology specific, so I did a psychology degree, straight psychology, did not do any other bits. Some of them will be university generic, I guess, or kind of I would assume applies to the whole university, if that makes sense. So this video will probably be very long. I have on my iPad made a little list. It's quite long. There'll probably be more that I can add in editing, but we're just gonna go through every issue, most of the issues I've had since being here. So this is in no particular order. I think I just did it. I came up with a concept, wrote it down. We will start with group work. Now, I don't have an issue with the concept of group work. This is not an issue. As much as I don't like it, I don't appreciate it as a assessment method, group work as a thing is okay. My issue is group work here specifically. So what we have is, I think they have a cap on how much your group work can be worth, and it can only be worth up to 20% in a group, in a module, so it's not going to hugely affect your grade. However, obviously still, if you work in a group and it's really shit and you get a 40, and then in your individual pieces of work you get 2 60s, that 40 will pull you down, like, regardless, you know. The issue is it's very poorly regulated, as in, randomly allocate me to a group, fine, but there's very little ways to alert people of issues, and lecturers don't necessarily do anything about those issues. So at the end of your group work, you rate them on a scale of, you rate everyone, including yourself, on a scale of 1 to 4. 4 being made a similar contribution to other group members, essentially everyone did fine. 3, significantly less contribution. 2, engaged in group discussions but did not contribute to submitted work. 1, did not attend meetings. My issue is between 2 and 3 is a big jump of the overall ranking for them. If you score a 4, you get the grade given in the project. So say you got a 68, you get a 68. If you get a mean of a 3, you get 1 categorical mark less. So you would get a 65. My issue is, if you have contributed, as it says, significantly less than other group members, 1 categorical mark less is not much. Unless your group got a 78 and you get a 72, all of the other categorical marks have a difference of 3. So you would just go from a 68 to a 65, which is a very little drop considering it says significantly less. Because 2 means you did not contribute. If you score a mean of a 2, you get capped as a 40, which again, should you be allowed to pass? If you didn't contribute, like yes, you engaged in group discussions, but if you didn't do any work, should you be allowed to pass? And then a mean of a 1, I think you get a 0 in the project. My issue is they could engage in group discussions and contribute very, very little, very, very It's not really fair that if we get a 68, they still get a 65 when they've not actually done any work. Like, they could do, nothing. They could turn up to 3 meetings and talk, and you still get a good grade from that project, even though they've not done anything. And like, I need an in between a 2 and a 3, in the sense that if someone's contributed significantly less, or a mean of a 3 needs to have a harsher punishment, because getting 3 grades less than me when you did nothing, or significantly less, bit weak. Also, you've got the issue of everyone ranking. So, for example, I did a group project in first year with my tutor group that was worth 20% or something. We had an individual essay, we wrote the individual essay, and then we made a presentation which was based off of the individual essay. We made the presentation. I made the presentation, I chased them up in WhatsApp, I made the work. If you check the track changes in PowerPoint, everyone maybe edited their slide once. I made all the slides and then just put names down. I put a list of the slides and said, put your name down for a slide and do it. But do it just meant you're going to be the one to present it. They didn't do any work, but they technically edited the slides. So I could only give them a 3 because they only technically contributed less. That is not fair that they get a 65. I think we got a 72 in that. That is not fair that they get a 68 when all they did was read out a slide where I wrote the slide, I wrote the script. And you could very clearly see the essay followed the presentation, literally further the structure of my essay because I had submitted my essay. The tutor had seen my essay. He had loved it. He'd given it 78. Did it not ring any bells to him that the presentation was the exact same? Exact same. I even emailed my tutor and I said, they're not doing anything, they've not done any work. So we had people not even turn up to the actual presentation. We had one girl on the day of the presentation send me a voice note, which I think it was a voice note so I can screenshot it, saying, shit, what am I doing? Do I have to do something? How do I do work? We also scheduled the meeting, everyone said they could come, one person did not attend. To keep chasing them, and I was chasing them in the WhatsApp, and I was like, please, put your name down, it's not hard. I don't care if you don't do slides at this point, because it was getting so late, we were missing deadlines. I said, just put your name down for something, and we'll move on. And then I posted something on my Instagram story, and I was like, I fucking hate group work. And then someone in my Choose group was like, is this about our group? And I was like, yeah, it is, I hate them. And then they were like, oh, but some people are like struggling with things. Okay, I'm also struggling with things. If you have a full-time job as well as university, yes, I feel bad that you have to have a full-time job, but you've chosen to do a degree as well. You have to manage your time, that's not on me, to do your work for you. And if you're unwell, get out of the work. Like, I think the excuse was like oh, but like they're not well, or they're busy. Okay, so was I. I had other modules, I had things to do, and they didn't do any work. Everyone then, I ranked everyone a 3, apart from the person who didn't turn up, got a 0. I think there was a 0, or they got a 1 and someone else got a 1. Obviously though, I'm the only person who had any issues with that group, so their mean is going to be a 4. Because if I don't contribute in a group project, I'm not going to rank myself low, and I'm not going to rank other people low, because a lot of people are scared to rank other people low because it's not that hard to kind of guess who gave you a low ranking. You don't get published the rankings, but it's not that hard to guess, oh, they were being a bitch. They obviously don't like me, they're going to give me a low ranking. Like, other people in that group probably felt like they'd done a good enough contribution. Objectively, if we looked at the amount of minutes spent on that presentation, they hadn't. But to them, they think they've done enough work. So then when I rate them all low, it doesn't matter that I've rated them low because I'm the only one that's rated them low. So the mean is they still get the full grade and they've done. I raised this with my tutor. I said, hey babe, what the He said, oh yeah, I'll remind everyone. And he just sent an email saying like, reminder, you're gonna get rated at the end of it. Okay. They didn't. I still emailed him afterwards and I said, babe, they didn't do any of the project. And he went, oh, but that's not what they've said. Well, yeah, no, obviously I'm not gonna say, if I've not done any of the project, I'm not gonna reply to an email and say, yeah, no, she's right, I didn't do Basically, no regulation of group work, really hard to rank them, people don't deserve the grades they get in group work. So, we've then got the issue of normal distribution. If you're American, this is the curve. This is the thing that happens in all your classes, and to you might not be a problem because it happens in it just happens all the time. This is a problem. Nobody tells you that you are going to get normally distributed. Nobody tells you that this is going to happen. Nobody tells you what your raw mark was. You just get a normally distributed grade. I don't see the point as why would I even try working hard if I know people are smarter than me? Because I know in stats, I'm quite smart. There are people smarter than me, which means that if I get an 80%, it literally does not matter because there's probably 20 people that got higher than me, and therefore I'm not going to get given an 80%. Why would I go the extra mile and do more if my grade is going to get decided randomly by a stupid curve? Like, basically, if you do, unless you get 100% in a project or 90%, maybe 95%, it's pretty much irrelevant that you've done well. I got like 86%, 80% in stats, and I was given a 66. I did not get a 66, I was given that. The issue is then, I have a 66 in a stats module when I didn't get that. Someone in another university who doesn't get normally distributed because it's not applied universally has a 70, but I objectively did better than them. But comparing their grades, a university would say no to me because I did worse, yes to them because they did better. I did not actually do worse than them though, and obviously I'm not going to put a note, you can't put a note on your transcript that says I actually didn't get this grade, this was completely a scam. I can't do that. I think actually this was very, very briefly explained to us in first year. Someone put, a stats lecturer basically said that the rules, that it had better internal validity and it was a better comparison between us to use normal distribution. However, if I got an 85 raw and someone else got 90 raw, I know they did better than me by 5 points. If I get a 66 from normal distribution and they actually end up with a 75, I now think they did a whole lot better than me when they actually didn't do that much better than me, but I wouldn't know that because of normal distribution. Like, if your test is so easy that everyone's getting 100, that's literally your fault. That's not my fault that we do well. Like, I think we were told in our stats class that, like, we just happened to have got better than all of the other years, so we got curved more. It's not my fault. You've not made your test any harder, and we're getting smarter. Like, they include everyone who gets 100 as well, which means that you could have, like, raw passed that exam and then categorically not been given a pass. We don't get told what raw mark we get. I've asked. The only way I know about my stats mark is because I asked. Like, otherwise, I would look at my grade on stats and think, I only got 60% in that exam. I got 40% of things wrong. I'm stupid. Because as much as, yes, 60 might be a 2-1 and that's fine, in a maths exam, I'm going to think, but I got 40% of things wrong. So I'm not very good because I got so much incorrect. I don't get any reasoning for it that's very logical, because I can still compare myself to other people in my cohort without my grade being normally distributed. What I can't now do is compare myself to people at other universities, which is what matters when you're getting a job. It could genuinely take you and change your degree classification. That's a bit of an issue. And obviously I now look, I don't necessarily look stupid, but I look more stupid than someone who raw did worse than me in the stats exam. Like, we only really get normally distributed for stats. However, we have some random things where we also get normally distributed, like MCQs, normal distribution. Again, make it harder. Don't normally distribute it, make it harder, or normally distribute it less. I should not lose 20% every time I answer something. I went from 70% raw to like a 58. That's a 2-2. I went from a raw first to a 2-2. And that was because 2 people had done quite well in that exam. Okay, remove them from the curve. That shouldn't affect me. I don't care that they've done well. That's not how I've done. I got 70%, I didn't get a 58, but I was handed one. I've had a lot of changes from like a 75 to a 65, 85 to 65, 66 to 55. These are big jumps of 10 marks. If my stats grade changes by 10 marks, it changes my module average for that semester by 2.5%. That's huge. Like, it might not seem huge, but I'm a student that borders on a first. I'm a student that's in 67 to 69 range. That could have got me a first. But I can't get a first because of that. Like, it's also not very consistent. Like, in other parts of this university, you can end your module with a 95. You can do maths, you get 100% in that exam, you get 100% in the module. You cannot get a 100 in a module here. They would not let it because you then look too smart because they made a test that was either easy or you just happen to be kind of good at it. Like, and again, this leads on to kind of the next point of categorical marks, in the sense that we have 100, 95, 87, 78, 72. If you get 86% raw, you might not get given an 87, you could go all the way down to a 72, because a 78 doesn't quite cut it, but that's a massive then jump because of the categorical marking system. Like, we're not allowed 100 essentially, we're not allowed to do well. Any work that you do that is kind of an objectively right or wrong, MCQs, MRQs, stats, you will be normally distributed. You will not be told you've been normally distributed. Whatever grade you get on results day, you probably actually did better than that. Like, in some cases it will take you from, you had a raw 2-1, you've now got a 2-2, and now because you've got a 2-2 in stats, you can't get into a lot of degrees. How is that fair? But yeah, so we'll lead on to categorical marks. Categorical marking is essentially how we are given grades. So in a first, you can get a 95, but only in MCQs, you can get a 100. Then the grades you can be given for written work in a first, 87, 78, 72. 2-1, 68, 65, 62, 58, 55, 52, 48, 48, 48, 45, 50, 42. In all of the other things, first, in a 2-1, 2-2 and third, you can get a 5, as in you can get a 65 or a 55. In a first, in our university, you cannot get a 75. So if they think your work is perfect, you don't get an 87 either. They're not going to give that one written work. I've received 1 in my time at university, but the amount of grades, the amount of work I've had where they've said this was perfect, nothing would have improved it. Okay, why is it not an 87 then? Why wouldn't you give me an 87? There's been a lot of times where they've given you a 72 and they've said you made 1 mistake. If you had a 75 as a grade, you could then get given that 75. And again, that's a massive difference, because if we have a 75 as a grade, all the things that I've done that are 68s would go up to a 72 where they actually belong, because I'm being told my work is pretty much perfect. Like, I got a 72 in a piece of work, I was told this was perfect, nothing could have improved it. Why was it not a 78? Why was it not an 87? I had another 72 and I got told the only thing that would have made this better is maybe a little bit more punctuation. Why is that not a 78 then when an 87 is the highest grade? It seems to be you make one mistake, you're not allowed an 87. Like, you're pretty much not going to get that. So you make 1 mistake, maybe 78, 2 mistakes, 72, 3 mistakes, 68. Whereas other universities, you can get straight 85s, and an 85 isn't even kind of that good because a 95 exists. Like, to me, getting a 78 in my lit review, that's the highest grade I could have got, therefore that's the best you could have done. Whereas another university, you can get a 95 and therefore getting an 85, you're like, oh my god, wow, I did great, but also I could have done better. I could not have done better. My feedback for my lit review was, this is perfect, so why was it not an 87? Like, other universities have different categorical marks in the sense that there are more things you can actually get in a first. Like, I don't know what universities these are, but you can get 74, an 81 and 89. There are 3 things that they will actually give you. There are 87, 80, 74. Again, even though that they are slightly different, they're higher. So 74 is the lowest you can get in a first. Our lowest you can get in a first is 72. That's 2 points more. That's a big difference. The second highest, again, an 80, whereas we've got 78. So work that I've done that got me a 78 here could get me an 80 somewhere else, which again would mean I would finish with a higher classified degree. Some universities do it by 5%. You can get a 95, 90, 85, 80, 85, 75, 70. Why can't we do that? It genuinely takes away from why I don't want to do a degree, because I submit a piece of work, get told it's absolutely perfect, and I've got 72 in it. Whereas someone else submits a piece of work, they've got told it's absolutely perfect, and they get an 85 in it in another university. Like, you could get straight 78s in this university, and that's the highest you could get, but someone else at another university could get straight 90s, and obviously they look way smarter than you because they've got 90s, but we're not allowed them. Like, the categorical marking system is absolute because, and it falls in with the normal distribution in the sense that people doing maths can get a 95 in a module if they get 95%. If we get 95%, you might get an 87 because it has to line up with a categorical mark, whereas in another university you could get a 90 because that's a different categorical mark. I don't know how well I've explained that, but it literally objectively affects your degree. My degree feels like it's worth less. It's also objectively harder for me to get a first at this university than if I'd gone somewhere that maybe they had a 74, an 80 and an 87, because I would have got an 80 when here I'm getting a 78. That's a 0.5 increase in my module, in my degree, in my semester average. That could have taken me to a first. I will now talk about personal academic tutors. So when you arrive at the university, in first year you get a tutor, and I don't think they do it anymore, but we had a module that was like tutor-led. You met them once a week, on Teams probably. You did the essay, you did a presentation, you kind of worked with them for a little bit. In second year you have the same one. In third year, your dissertation supervisor becomes your PAT unless you ask to keep your previous PAT. I had one tutor in first year, one in second year, one in third year, because in second year I said my first year tutor was and I moved, and he was great for all of 5 minutes until he sided with an ableist lecturer. Third year, I don't think any dissertation supervisor really knows that they're meant to be a PAT, like that they're meant to pretend to care about you at least. Like, I never got checked in on in a sense of other than how's your research paper going. It was just a how's your research paper. It was never a you okay. And I literally have a student support sheet, which is like a access arrangement thing that says, oh, Saskia really benefits from frequent contact from tutors to check that she's okay and that she's not struggling with her work. All of my tutors had access to this form. Did any of them ever frequently contact me? No, not once. I don't also seem to know anything. I don't think they know what they're supposed to do as an academic tutor other than academic things, in the sense that yes, they're supposed to help you with like CV and like other stuff, but if you're struggling, they are supposed to know where to signpost you. They are supposed to know how to help you. Yes, they're not trained professionals, but they should know, oh, you're struggling with this problem and therefore you should go to this service. They don't know where to send you, they don't know what to do with you. The only purpose of them is to give you a reference at the end of your degree, and even that, some of them won't do it. I applied for a master's. I asked my first year tutor to give me a reference and my third year supervisor to give me a reference. Only reference that actually was ever sent was from my first year tutor. My third year supervisor never sent me a reference. He's lucky I got into any of masters, because I'm supposed to have 2 references to get in. He never sent them. And the reason I know he never sent them is because I literally get a notification that my master's applications have been updated, but they've obviously not been updated because he's not added anything to them. They don't really check in on you when they probably should. Like, even if I didn't have a form that says check in on Saskia, maybe it would have been nice if they'd asked if I like, I'm a student moving to university, especially I started my degree in a pandemic, and no one really thought to ask, is the student okay? Like, yes, in our tutor meetings it was is everyone alright, is everyone doing okay? But if I'm having an absolute down, I'm not going to go, actually I'd love to talk in front of these 8 other people that I'm sleeping all day and sobbing. I'm not going to say that. And I don't necessarily want to email the lecturer because, again, I've just moved to university. I don't know how this works. I don't know if I could just say, hey, blank, I'm really struggling, could you help me? Like, in sixth form, I knew I could just send an email that was hey, Karen, could you do me a hand? I don't know in degree level necessarily what support I can get, what support am I supposed to get, because this is the issue, is we don't have any expectations. I don't know what I'm supposed to be able to get as help, or just what am I supposed to get, full stop. We'll go on from academic tutors to the dissertation process, because I submitted an email to the head of the dissertation process and the head of the undergraduate, very long email, 2,000 words, saying, babe, this is like, there's no regulation, and the issue again, you don't know what you can expect, so you don't know what help you can get. Like, firstly, we're split into lit review and research paper. 2 separate things, 2 separate modules, 2 separate grades. First, when you pick this, you pick it in second year, summer of second year. You rank the 5 disciplines: health, clinical, cognitive, social, developmental. So you say 1 clinical, 2 health, that kind of thing. Then within the disciplines of each topic, you tick them and you say, yes, I like this. However, that doesn't really work, because I might put cognitive 5th, but I would rather do like eyewitness testimony in cognitive than maybe placebo effects in health, but I might have still put health second. Like, it should be that you rank the individual topics first, and also you rank them, you don't just tick yes, because I also thought, should I just tick it because I guess I'd be okay doing a project on it because I don't know what I'm going to get? Then you should rank the disciplines. Then you have an ability to like leave comments and say, oh, I really want this, or I've already arranged with this supervisor to do this. I don't think they read those because I said I think I really wanted to do like ADHD or autism, and I got assigned a supervisor who was ADHD or autism, but his project wasn't. So like, we were allocated based on what the supervisor's interests are, not on what the is. Like, yes, my supervisor was an ADHD researcher, but he wasn't studying ADHD at that point in time, so my dissertation was not on ADHD. So why does it even matter that I ticked that I liked ADHD? Because it didn't make a difference in my allocation? Like, allocate me to someone who's studying that currently, not necessarily someone whose interests are that. We also then had to tick like, do you want to join a researcher's project, have an in-betweeny model in that maybe you add a question to their questionnaire, you do a little bit of what they're doing but you add your own flair to it, or I want to be independent. Now, I ticked the in-betweeny model, and I think most people did. However, when you meet your dissertation supervisor for the first time, it actually ended up being you're not doing an in-betweeny model. It would be I'm currently doing this research project, you are now joining onto it. I met my supervisor, he was like, by the way, I'm researching, we're all as a group going to do placebo effects, you can do this illness, what illness do you want to do? Oh, you can do this illness. First of all, I was supposed to be in developmental, I was told that I was allocated to developmental. Hear me out, placebo effects are health psychology, we were also looking at mental illness, that is clinical. That does not line up. Second of all, I was then given that project. I never said I wanted to be given a project, I said I wanted to do an in-betweeny model, which would you'd suggest, which would you'd think he'd say, oh, here are my interests, let me know your interests and then we can come up with a project together. No, that didn't happen. I then had to change projects, and even when I changed projects, I literally just, first of all, I emailed the dissertation module lead and I said, babe, this is literally not what I signed up to do. This. Yeah, but those are his interests. I said, okay. Why is that relevant? I'm interested in, I don't know, I could be interested in attraction, but if my current research is on cognitive processes in learning, don't allocate me kids who want to do attraction studies because I'm going to put them on cognitive processes. Like, I also emailed and I was like, are there any other supervisors? And he was like, no, not really. He said there's 2, but they're both projects. I was like, could you not give me like a list of people who exist and I could ask them, would you take an extra student? I would have rather been in a different dissertation group. I then met with my supervisor and he just I met with him and he was like, because I emailed the head and he was like, oh, I'll let him know that you're not interested. And I was like, well, yeah, please. But then he just gave me another project. And like, I still don't know what discipline my project was in because I then did neuropsychiatry and COVID, which is kind of clinical and kind of health, but I still was supposed to be in developmental. I was also given that project. Again, I did not come up with it. I did not do an in-betweeny model. I was handed this project. I was told, do it. Actually, I was met with him for 6 minutes. He gave me a rough title, said, we're going to look at this. I thought he'd contact me again. I thought he'd help me. No, he didn't. Like, we have a Blackboard page for it, which is like a Moodle, which says, you should expect 20 minutes every 2 weeks as a minimum of individual interaction with your supervisor. I think I had 20 minutes across the whole 2 semesters. Like, there's a whole page that says, here is your list of expectations. I don't think I know more than about 4 people who got that. Like, we did not have weekly Teams meetings, weekly Zoom meetings, monthly Zoom meetings. I met with him 3 times. The first time was for a different project, so it doesn't even count. We met for 10 minutes, 20 minutes in total. I never met with him for my research paper. Not once. My research paper also has nothing to do with my lit review because he spent all of the lit review thinking I would do a meta-analysis of COVID. I don't know how of neuropsychiatric tools in COVID. I don't know how a meta-analysis works, so I wasn't going to say I can't do that, but it turns out I can't do that because there's only case reports that exist. We only figured this out during my research paper. So he then said, find some secondary data and do something. So I found a set of secondary data and I said, okay, now what? And he said, come up with a statistical plan. I thought, isn't that your job? Aren't you supposed to help me? So I just had this random piece of chunk of data, had to say, I'll run a regression, and then he said, okay. And then I did that. And then I would send him emails and go, is this okay? And he'd say, yes. Or I'd send him an email with 3 questions and he would not respond to all of them, because why would you be helpful? Like, I still don't know if some of my tables are correct, because I asked him and I checked APA. Neither one gave me a response, so I don't know if I'm correct. He didn't meet with me. He didn't meet with most of his students, but also most supervisors didn't. There's no consistency, which obviously means that some people are getting spoon-fed. The amount of work I put into a 78 might be completely different from the amount of work someone else put into a 78 because their supervisor helped them. We were also supposed to get detailed comments and feedback on a 1200 word draft. Now, if you've seen my dissertation diaries, I got about 2 sentences of comments. And he said, I can't comment on structure/wording as this will be assessed. Yes, it should be assessed by you in my 1200 word draft. He did not. That was all a load of It's also, for the research paper, completely different levels of expectations per student. Join a PhD student's questionnaire, add 1 question, and that's it. Some students get their data handed to them by a lecturer and the lecturer says, go. Some students have to come up with their own entire study, their own questionnaire, come up with their own ethics. I objectively had an easy research paper. Other people had 4 stats tests to run, 10 stats tests to run, 1 stats test to run. Different, and it's not necessarily based on your academic ability, it's just based on who you bloody get to supervise you and what you can end up doing. You might be incredibly smart, but your supervisor just says, gotta supervise, run a t-test on this. You might have wanted to run your own project, but here's the thing, I don't necessarily know how to run a project. And yes, they'll say, but you learned these skills during degree. No, I didn't. I've never run a study. I've never run a real study, and I never will now. I would have happily designed my own actual research project had I known I could do that, and also had I had any support. Even if I'd just been given a link to a website that said, here's how you make a research proposal, I'd have loved that. Other people get to do research proposals, criminology, make a research proposal. I think biology, nursing, engineering, you make a proposal. We don't. We join onto a shit project and then we don't get any supervision. Your lecturer could technically never meet with you once. They don't have to, there's no regulation. You could send an email to the head of the module and go, he's never met with me, and they'll go, that's his supervision style. No, it's not. I got told, that's just his supervision style. He seems to think that you're really smart and independent. And I said, you know why I'm smart and independent? Because no one's helping me, so I've had to become smart and independent. And also, because I ended up with a good grade, it now looks like his bad supervision didn't affect me. But also, I could have potentially got a better grade with actual supervision. And I got that grade in spite of not being supervised, not because of my supervision. Some people have incredible supervisors that hold their hand, do things they're not supposed to, read their stats and check their stats are correct and help them with their project. Not really allowed to do that. And then some people get given a set of data and told to piss off. So my camera overheated, and then I overheated, and a bit of a ruckus. Basically, lit review research paper, not regulated. No one to go to complain that actually listens, because again, obviously, they're all besties in the psychology department. So if I go to the head of the research paper and I go, lecturer 1's not doing a good job, he'll go, lecturer 1 would never do that. I just, no, I know lecturer 1 and he wouldn't do that. So that's fun. Then moving on to lecturers generally. Again, this is psychology specific because I don't know the other lecturers. So in first year, as much as I appreciate that it was COVID, they had kind of already done videos and stuff for the year before us in semester 2 who'd been struggling with that. none of them cared. They uploaded old videos. We then had a 1 hour Q&A online, whereas other degrees they would do the 1 hour online with an actual lecture, as in it would be a 1 hour of going through a theory rather than a 1 hour of a, how's everyone doing? Anyone got any questions? Because no, we've not got any questions because we don't really know what to ask, because it's our first degree, it's our first ever lecture, and you've just gone, any questions? I don't know. And also, pretty much not a single lecturer I've interacted with has any passion for what they're teaching. Like, I think a lot of the lecturers here are here for the money, which, yeah, fair enough, but to get the money for research, they have to teach. At least pretend that you want to teach. Like, the only lecturers who have any passion are the ones who do boring topics. Like we did Empirical Studies 1, Research Method 2. Boring, but the lecturers genuinely cared, and if they didn't, they were good at bloody pretending that they did. They were good at pretending that they cared. Like behavioural neuroscience, the first chunk of that, boring. It's sodium potassium channels. The lecturer bloody loves that stuff. Like, he was interested, he cared. Like, most of them have no passion for their subject, and they also have no interest in helping you as a student. Like, we had in our Q&A sessions, yeah, they'll go through a theory because they're being paid for that hour. But if you email them and say, can you help me with this? A lot of the time it's you're in university now, you need to be independent. We've not been taught how to be independent. We've not been taught any skills to become independent because you won't help us. Like, a lot of lecturers, you email them and they give you a very wishy-washy response. A very, I don't want to help you. Or it's on the assignment, it's on the blackboard. Yeah, but I'm asking you to explain something to me. And again, because we were all kind of online, it's not like you can just go to their office hours and ask them. It's give them an email, hope that they respond, but they'll respond in kind of a sarky way. And again, like, we don't know how to email lecturers. Do I just send an email to head of the module and go, hello, professor? Do I go, hi, hey, dear? How do I sign off? What do I ask them? Will they reply with email? Will they Teams call me? What do I expect from that? A lot of the time, you don't get response to your emails. I've had lecturers actively never respond to my email, number one, or take 3 weeks, between 3 and about 8 weeks to reply to emails. By the time they've replied, the coursework's been handed in. They won't reply. They also seem to think that we're either a lot smarter or a lot dumber than we are. As in, when we were doing basic stats, first ever stats module in semester 1 of the first year of our degree, one of the lecturers genuinely seemed frustrated with us that we didn't know how to do it all. Like, he genuinely seemed pissed off that he had to explain how to calculate the probability. You don't have to have maths to get into a psychology degree, and also, if you've not taught it well, that's on you. Like, a lot of us might not be the smartest, but we can pick something up if it's explained to us. The issue is it's not explained to us, so we actually can't then pick it up. There is another kind of a blanket rule in this university. A lecturer is never wrong. Never. Doesn't matter that they could physically beat you up. No, they didn't. I know that lecturer and they would never do that. Never. They're not wrong. Anything they say that's controversial is not controversial, it's the way you've interpreted it. If they literally called you a horrible person, they didn't mean it. The lecturer was never wrong. A grade you get where the lecturer has actively disliked you for the whole module and then given you a 40 and gone, just wasn't very good. You can't question that because, okay, it just wasn't very good. What can you do about that? Nothing. You can't question anything a lecturer ever does, any grade they ever release, any work they ever publish. You can't question it. It's very high school when you're just kind of taught teacher's always right. I think this is just a general person thing, but as an autistic person, I don't give a that you're supposedly in a position of power. If you know more than me on a topic, yeah, fair enough, you know more than me on that topic. You don't get respect just because you're old. You don't get respect because you've got a title. Like, yes, you might be a professor. Doesn't mean you know everything. Doesn't mean you're a good person. Like, lecturers expect respect for being lecturers. When they don't do anything to deserve it, they don't check on you, they mark your work harshly and leave you one sentence of feedback, they don't care about you at all.
Editing Saskia here. I have been editing this video for ages. But I just thought I'd come in and say another fun thing one of our lecturers did is he once made us, he told us he's the smartest ever, he can spell any word ever. Just ask him. He made us quiz him on words to see if he could spell them, or if he could tell us what they meant. Sir, why are you showing off? I'm 20. I don't care that you can spell or that you know words. He loved playing devil's advocate. He was like the conservative boy or like the really religious kid in RE. He was like, I think abortion's murder. But like, obviously he's a lecturer. Like, we had someone who was actively like, babe, shut up, you're wrong. And he was like, someone trying to argue with me when I say a horrible and controversial thing. You shouldn't do that. So it's another fun thing.
It's a great review I found online. I think it was on I think it was Rate My Professor. I didn't know that we had that in the UK, but I had a look on that. And this is a perfect review of a lecturer, which once you hear this, if you go to the university and do psychology, you might know who it is. Sounds like I wrote it because it's everything I'd like to say. So, he is a very poor lecturer. The way he attempts to explain things is very confusing, and he spends more time talking about hypothetical concepts and turning them into weird jokes instead of presenting scientific material. If you don't do it his way, you are wrong. It doesn't matter if you hold a different opinion, you're wrong, and he will mark you down for that. Lecture content is boring, and he always tries to sound so smart he gets lost in his own explanations. Essays are poorly graded, feedback takes forever to get, takes a month to reply to emails, and confuses everyone with conflicting information, insists on doing things precisely his way, no other way is good.
Saskia, back again just to comment on this lecturer. He basically set us this essay, and he said, just cite the textbook, you need to cite anything else. And I thought, first of all, right, that's real stupid, that's real like third level kind of stuff. I did it anyway, and I submitted the work. We then had a lecture like the day before the work was due, and he then said, I sure hope no one's just cited the textbook. He said, you better be citing the original papers from the textbook. So as much as you're reading the textbook, you're citing the original papers. I was like, excuse me, sir, it's not what you said. He still graded me okay in that essay, but I just thought I'd let you know another fun thing that little did.
That summarises my issue. A lot of lecturers are like this, but again, you can't question it because a lecturer is never wrong. Linking onto that though, I've got kind of like self-plagiarism, which we aren't allowed to self-plagiarise. Yeah, fair enough, you can't take work that you did last year and make it this year. Lecturers with exams, they've made 2 exams in the past 10 years and just reused them. In a social psychology module in second year, same exam question for the past, including last year and this year, same exam question for the past 6 years. In health psychology, they seem to use one question 2 years in a row, so if you go and look on the exam feedback, you've got the answer. They like to just reuse the same questions, but we aren't allowed to do anything reused. I get that we can't self-plagiarise, but I'm not gonna lie, babe, you don't reply to our emails, you don't mark our work on time, at least you could do is come up with a new question. It's not that hard. Speaking of, we will then talk about complaints. If you've watched most of my videos, I've complained a lot at this university, and I've been told a lot of times. This is a university-wide policy that you cannot complain about anything. You cannot complain about an academic decision. So if you did a piece of work and you got given a 40 on it, you can question it and they'll say, we just didn't think it was good. We think it met the criteria for being a 40. You can't appeal it, you can't complain it, you can't ask for it remarked. That is the final decision. Other universities, you can do it with academic support. Even in this university, there's been people who have had academic support. Maybe their tutor has read the piece of work and said, no, this is literally completely wrong. You can't do anything about it. And again, your degree, your final classification will be negatively affected by that. You also, with your complaints, I made a complaint against a specific lecturer and I made a complaint against like the faculty of psychology. They were investigated by someone in psychology. I know that you might need someone in psychology to understand the ins and outs, but again, none of my complaints have actually really been about anything psychological, they could have been researched and investigated by someone in physics, because in my complaint about a lecturer who was ableist to me, everyone I've said this thing to has said it was ableism, because it was ableism. It was researched, it was investigated by one of their buddies who said, I just don't think she'd do that. That doesn't sound like her, she wouldn't do that. And therefore, even though I had literal email proof of it, my final complaint statement said, we found no evidence of ableism. No, I found the evidence for you and showed you, but you said, that's my bestie, I'm not going to do anything about it. We've had another complaint investigated by someone who obviously works in psychology, knows the lecturer we're talking about, and they've said, doesn't sound like him. Where is the impartial researcher? Like, in a complaint meeting, you have like a head of complaints who's just there typing things up, and then a psychology lecturer. No. The head of complaints should be running the complaint and asking us questions, because they are impartial. They can't say, he would never do that, she would never do that, that's not like him, because they don't know them. Your complaint about a lecturer could be investigated by their best friend. And obviously, if I could beat someone up on the street, and if you ask my best friend to investigate that, they'll say, no, I didn't. Yeah, they also purposely take as long as humanly possible to process and accept your complaints in the hopes of you withdrawing. They don't explicitly say, we'd love you to withdraw, but they're taking their time. I have a complaint that's still going. We submitted it in about February. At the time of filming this, it's June, end of June. It's still going. Might not even be done by the time we graduate. They take their time, but we can't appeal or complain about anything that happened more than 30 days ago. And when you go from a stage 1 to a stage 2 complaint, you have to do it within 5 working days. But they can take 100 working days to even read your emails. We've then got disability related things, enabling services. Now, this is not the worst thing ever. I don't have the biggest issue with the disability services. However, they don't offer much. As in, I had a meeting with them about like my needs and like what special help I might want, and they kind of don't seem to know anything. Like, I'm not dyslexic, I'm not dyspraxic, and I feel like maybe that's probably what they specialise in, but they didn't seem to know anything. Like, my student support sheet just has a definition of the disorders I have, and then Saskia is strong, Saskia is hard. It has a strength section, and then like a recommended strategies, but the strategies are not really things that they seem to have thought of. It's just you had this in secondary school, so you can have it now. They also don't, I wouldn't know who to talk about if I was having an issue, like a disability related issue. I wouldn't know who to go to and say, look, my autism's really causing an issue, what can I do? Because again, I don't have a personal academic tutor. I don't think enabling services would back me, because this is my fun little story. When I submitted the complaint about the lecturer who was ableist, the disability services actively sided with the ableist lecturer. Why would I trust the disability services again if they're going to side with the ableist lecturer, not the disabled student who they created a disability recommendation for me. The lecturer then said no. They then sided with the lecturer rather than saying, no, we created this. Like, they don't create disability statements and things for funsies. It's based off medical evidence. And they still sided with a lecturer over me? That's another thing. The enabling services, I'll give them a clap for this. I booked a meeting and I was like, babe, can I get something added to my student support sheet? And it was a no group work for Saskia, because I don't like group work, don't like working with people, makes me very overwhelmed, very stressed. It's not just I don't like it, I can't do it. It doesn't work for me as an autistic person, I cannot function with it. They were happy for me to never do group work. They were like, we will happily submit a recommendation that you don't have to do group work, and that instead you can do the same thing on your own or a similar individual piece of work. The School of Psychology rejected that. The disability team was happy for it. School of Psychology said, no, group work is a vital skill. That's like, I get it to some extent, but it's also like saying, I'm dyslexic and I need 25% extra time, and then School of Psychology turning back and saying, writing fast is a key skill, you can have 20. That is essentially what it is. And obviously I know that my disabilities are they're not seen as real, right? If I was dyslexic or dyspraxic, I know that they're not necessarily considered disabilities all the time, but like they're more legit in university. Whereas autism and stuff, they'll go, it's just a preference, you don't need that. Whereas dyslexia, they'll go, no, but you need the extra time. Like, what happened in my complaint is the equivalent of a lecturer, me being entitled to 25% extra time, and a lecturer going, you can have 15. But it wasn't seen that way because it wasn't based on a dyslexia or a I'm physically disabled and they won't let me in with my wheelchair. Like, it wasn't based on that, therefore it wasn't valid. Another little fun thing, not necessarily related, but when you come on the open days, you get told, babe, we're gonna take you around the labs. You'll go in the labs, I promise. Never step foot in a lab. Not done a single piece of work in the lab. I've done 3 voluntary research assistant schemes and I have never worked in a lab. I've done a dissertation and a research paper and I have never worked in a lab. I know 2 people that have worked in a lab or done anything in a lab. Fun segue. We've then got, this one's fun, mid-module feedback. So what we've got is halfway through semester 1, 5 weeks in, they'll go, opening up mid-module feedback, anyone got any comments? And you go, we would appreciate this, or this isn't run very well. And the lecturers read your mid-module feedback and they go, ooh, I don't care. To some extent, I get it. A lot of the times their response is, we've been doing this for years and it works. But also, you've had complaints about it every year. Like, take a module, empirical studies, you don't have any teaching, no contact hours, it's just a set of PowerPoints put up, not even with videos. All of the comments every single year have been, can we have some teaching? Please, can we have some teaching? Can we have some scheduled teaching, some lecture time teaching, please? And they go, no, because it's been like this for years and it's always worked. But it's not working because some of your students are doing really, really shit. And every mid-module feedback, this complaint is made. Things about like assessment methods, sometimes we'll say, I don't really understand why we're doing this assessment method and it doesn't work. And they'll go, but we've always done it like this. Doesn't mean it's good. They ask for mid-module feedback. They then say, we literally do not care. I've never done a single module where they've taken the mid-module feedback and done something about it. Like, for some things, for some of the mid-module feedback, it'll be a can you record the lectures? And like, that's a pretty reasonable suggestion, it's not very hard. And also, pretty much any time you meet with the enabling services, the first thing that goes on your student support sheet is having access to recorded lectures. I've had a module not record lectures, and technically I could say, babe, you're not meeting my support sheet. They would probably say, we don't care, it's not dyslexia. But like, that's a pretty reasonable request, and they've said no. They said people might not feel comfortable sharing sensitive content in a lecture. You can press pause. You can go through the content on a recording. You can then say, anyone got any questions? Pause. Would that be hard? I don't think it would be that hard. I think we could do that, but no, because it's worked like this for years. It's not that hard to record a lecture and upload it. And like, we had another module where, not necessarily mid-module feedback, but we asked her to record lectures. She did record them, put them up for 1 week, and then took them down? What about revising for an exam? We had an exam for that module, and then come revision time, you can't access any of the lectures. I could access the lectures because I sent her an email saying, babe, this is literally like, you're not supporting the autistics here. And she went, I'll share them with you. And I went, I'll take it, but no other student gets access to the lectures. It's not that hard to just leave them up there. Like, I don't know, a lot of mid-module feedback is, they'll ask you for feedback and then they'll say, no, it works like this, or no. Like, very rarely is mid-module feedback positive, because I'm not going to tell you if I'm enjoying your module, but I'm much more likely to tell you when it's not working. Like, a lot of the times they'll give you coursework and they won't really explain it, and then you'll go on the mid-module feedback, coursework wasn't very well explained, and they'll go, well, everyone submitted it fine and the mean was fine, so it was. Like, a lot of assessments we get set have nothing to do. Let's go on to assessments. A lot of the assessments we get set have absolutely nothing to do with the content we have learned. As in, I'm going to hold my hands up and say I've not done a single lecture this year. Third year, not done a lecture, maybe done one. I have still been able to get firsts and high 2-1s in pieces of work. I should not be able to do that, having not attended a lecture nor read the content. We had a module called Childhood Maltreatment last semester, where the first assessment was reading a set of papers and coming up with an intervention. The papers were not related to the content. The only relation was the fact that they were about autism and ADHD and care. They didn't actually have anything to do with the content. You could have not done the first 8 weeks of content and done that on the side as a project. What else have we done? Oh, we then had human sexual diversity. We had to create a public service announcement on just anything in sexual diversity. You never had to have opened the slides to answer that. I didn't open the slides to answer that because mine was about female masturbation, which is not in the slides, not part of the content. Intro to psychology, we had to make posters on like one part of the content, but it also actually, I didn't read any of that content and we still made the poster. Loads of assessment methods have all to do with the content that you do. Like we had to, for developmental psychology, we had to read a paper and critically evaluate it. Yes, the paper was on development of children in COVID. We hadn't actually learned about development of children in COVID. We were learning about depth perception. Like, it seems to be a lot that they'll do one assessment method with nothing to do with the course and then one assessment with something to do with it. But why am I bothering doing that first one? Why would I do any of your content if I don't have to? Like, I don't see why you would do content if you don't have to do it to pass. Things like biology, if you don't attend that lecture, you're not going to pass. You're not going to understand the questions, you're not going to understand the essay. I don't do the content and I can just put the question into Google Scholar. This might just be because I guess I'm a bit smart. I can put the question into Google Scholar, figure out the answer and write an essay that gets 78. I shouldn't be able to do that. I should have to do the content to some extent. Like, there are some modules where they'll mark you on like if you've used lecture content, but very rarely. Like, there are a lot of things where you just make a presentation that has nothing to do with the course, you get a first in it, and then it's like, why would I bother? Like, if I'd done the course, would I have actually done any better? No. Like, even when you do an assessment of content from the course, so in the module of perception, the exam was writing 2 750 word answers to 2 questions. All you had to do was search the question in the textbook, read that one section in the textbook, and then write an answer. Nothing I had learned in the course of perception, nothing I had looked through the slides would have helped me with that answer. Like, you can look at one slide from 1 week of a 12-week course and still get a first. I got 87 in a piece of work that I hadn't done any of the content for the lecture, hadn't done any of the module. I simply looked through the blackboard on the exam day, clicked on the one about chronic pain, found the same question that they'd already asked, and then thought they like this style of answer, so I'm going to do that. I did not need to do any of the lectures. And again, in second year, I did go to lectures. We gave it a go for all of first semester pretty much. It didn't help me. Like, there was absolutely no use because all they did was they sat there and they went, as you can see by the slides, this theory is about this. Let's watch a video. Anyone got any questions? Thank you, let's go. That was the lecture. We went to several lectures. It's just a Q&A. Like, when we had an actual lecture, they went through some content, but again, don't explain it very well. You can't pause to ask questions. They don't really answer your questions. They just read off the slide. They don't even like add a bit of something. It's literally reading off the PowerPoints, which means that I could print out those PowerPoints, never step foot in a lecture, never step foot in university, and have the exact same level of knowledge. Even things like seminars, they've never been useful. We have never had like a tutorial or a seminar when it's a do the reading and then come and discuss the reading. Never. Not once. Why? Why does that not exist? Like, other people at other unis, if you don't go to the lectures, you're not passing the course. If you don't do the reading, you're not passing the course. A lot of our reading is like if you want to read it, it might help you understand, but you don't really have to. Like, I did the reading for an entire module and then didn't actually do well. Like, I didn't do any better than I think I would have done had I not done the reading, because the reading didn't explain anything any better than I already knew it. There's no point doing lecture content, and that's such a dumb thing to have to say at university, is that I moved to Southampton for my degree. I could have stayed at home. The only time I would have had to come to campus is in second year, semester 1. I would have had to come to campus once a week for a compulsory session, which they've made not compulsory anymore, and then for my one in-person exam, and I absolutely wholeheartedly believe I would have got the exact same degree classification, including the exact same grades for everything. That shouldn't happen. I should not be able to do all work and get a full degree to the same level that someone else is going to every lecture and they're going to get the same grades as me. That is, I think, everything I wrote down as an issue to talk about. If there's anything else I've got, we will see editing Saskia on the camera of my high quality laptop, because I'm not going to get my camera back out because she's overheating.
Editing Saskia coming in to say that another thing I did actually forget to mention is feedback, in terms of like feedback that we get from exams. I don't know how I didn't mention this, but we get such sparse feedback. Like, in exam periods, if you submit a piece of work for an exam that's considered an exam, you don't get feedback on it. Like, the document that is returned to you has nothing on it. You just get a grade and results due and you go, great, fair enough. Coursework, you sometimes get feedback. We get feedback, but it's very varied. There is a module, psychology of advertising, you don't get feedback unless you ask for it, but like, I want it. Sometimes you get like one sentence that just says, this was good, to improve, do this. Sometimes you get like APA was really good, APA blah 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 blah. Sometimes you get like track change comments, but again, there's no consistency, which is the issue. Like, if we're going to get feedback, we should get it for everything. And also, some of the feedback is just blatantly wrong. Like, sometimes it's really just that they didn't want to give you a first, so they'll give the generic slight issues with APA, or could have used better phrasing. It just means they didn't want to give you a first. It doesn't mean that your work was not worth a first. Yeah, they don't really do feedback. The feedback they do is not very good. I once got told, I said STIs had negative effects. I got told that was a shaky statement to make. I said that realistically, if we increased gun regulation, there would be less terrorists. I was told explicitly that was a shaky statement to make. I thought, don't think it is, but if they don't agree with your vibe, they'll tell you you're wrong and they'll take it out on you.
I don't think I've got anything more to say. I'm sure something will come up when I'm editing this and I'll think I should mention that. But this is just everything I've come up with. This will have been at least an hour, I'm assuming, because I have a lot of issues with this university and there's nothing I can do about them other than complain. Like, I can't email the university and say fix this because, again, they don't care. So all I can do is post it online and hope that other people see this, and this is your warning, don't come here. At least specifically for psychology. Some other courses might be okay, but as a whole, I've not had a good time here, and I do regret coming. So yeah, not a positive video, but it's been a quite group of negative videos recently. I think this is my last hating video for this university. I've got a horrible one coming soon. And you should maybe get some positive university videos once I move for my masters. They won't necessarily be positive, but we'll go back to nice little vlogs.